Namaste and good morning, everyone. Let's start our class with the prayers. Om Parthaye Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayan Swayam Vyasen Gratitam Puran Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitam Ritvarshine Bhagavati Ashtadashadhyayane Amtvam Anusandhame Bhagavad Gite Bhavadveshine नमो अस्तुते व्यास विशाल बुद्धे फुल अरविंद आयत पत्र नेत्र येन तव्या भारत तैल पूर्ण प्रज्वलितो ज्ञान में प्रदीप परपान पारी जाता आए तोत्र वेत्र एक पाने है ज्ञान मुद्राए कृष्णाए गीता अमृत दुहे नमः सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोग्धा गोपाल नंदना पार्थो वत्सा सुधीर भोक्ता दुग्धम गीता अमृतम महत वसुदेव सुतम देवम कंस चानूरमर्दनम देवकी परमानंदम कृष्णम वंदे जगद्गुरुम भीष्म द्रोण तटा जयद्रथ चला गांधार नीलोत्पला शल्य ग्रावती कृपेन वहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थाम विकर्ण घोर मकरा दुर्योधन अवर्तने सो तीर्णा खलु पांडवै रन नदी के वर्तका केशवा पाराशरे वत्सरोजमलम गीता अर्थ गंधोटकम नानाख्यानक केसरम हरि कथा संबोधन अबोधितम लोके सज्जन षटपद रह रह पे पिए मानम मुदा भूयाद भारत पंकजम कलिमल प्रध्वंसी न श्रेयसे मूकम करोति वाचालम पंगुम लंघ्यते गिरिम यत्कृपा तमहं वंदे परमानंद माधवम यम ब्रह्म वरुण इंद्र रुद्र मरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्ये सवे वेदै सांगपद क्रमोपनिषदै गायन्ति यम सामगा ध्यानवस्थित तद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यम योगिनो यस्यन्तं न विदुसुर असुरगणा देवाय तस्मै नमः. In our Sunday class, we are studying from Bhagavad Gita and chapter 15, Purushottama Yog. And we are towards the end of it, verse number 13. In these verses, Lord Krishna is giving us the methods for perceiving the existence of God. The God is everywhere. So he's telling us, how can you really see God? You remember in the last verse, which we did in the last class, he said that light which is residing in the sun and which illumines the whole world, and that which is in the moon and in the fire, know that light to be mine. How clear the message is. God comes again and again, keep telling us, giving us the same message. Do we pay attention? Do we look at the sun, that this light which is coming, it's God's light? But did we ever look at the moon at night and try to connect with God through that light? Or even that diya which we burn in front of our altar.
Do
we ever recognize that as a divine light? Now let's look at in verse number 13, what other methods he is giving us. Gam avishye cha bhutani dharyami aham ojasa pushnami cha oshadhi sarvaha som bhutva rasatmaka. Gam, the earth. Avish, permitting. Chamin, and bhutani, all beings. Dharyami, I support. Aham, I, ojasa, by my energy. Pushnami, I support. Cha means and. Oshadhi, the herbs. Sarva, all. So mahamoon, bhutva, having become a rasatmaka, juice. Permitting the earth, I support all beings by my energy. And having become the juicy moon, I nourish all herbs. Support all beings with my energy. So the capacity in the earth to sustain life and nourish, the warmth and the mineral contents are all, Lord is saying, my own vitality. So in other words, it means that the same consciousness which through the sun becomes the warmth of the atmosphere, the God expressing through the earth the potential fertility of the soil and the life-giving secret capacity in the earth. We plant a small seed. It gives many seeds. Beautiful flowers, different colors of flowers. Who does it? Have you ever wondered? We can connect God through all this. Having become the moonlight, I nourish all the plants. So the same eternal consciousness, while functioning through the moon, expresses itself as a moonlight, but also fills each plant with this essential essence. If you talk to any naturopath, they'll tell you, or Ayurvedic experts, they expose certain seeds or the plants in the moonlight. They say that the medicinal value or that creative power in those herbs is enhanced when they are put under the moon. So this declaration of this verse by Lord Krishna is not unscientific. We just don't think this deeply. So the sun, the moon, and the fire are the sources of all energy in the world, and the very source of the energy from where it flows through these phenomenal expressions is the infinite consciousness, which we call God. So this consciousness of God functions through the earth and gives the fields their special capacity to sustain and nourish the vegetable world. And when those vegetables grow up, it's again the same consciousness functioning through the moon and manifesting as moonlight. Fills each vegetable with its essential food value. The nutrients which we talk about, it's all God. He has a beautiful system. We think that earth is a mass of matter. But by the power of God, it's made habitable for us. Sustains various species. It's mentioned in our scriptures. There are 84 lakh, 84 lakh species. And the other day I was telling you how it has been broken down. It's not just a random number, exact number for each species our Purans talk about. And who is giving the nutrients? God is. I mean, you all remember when we were children, we wondered why the ocean water is so salty. The fact is that if it were not salty, it would have been a source of diseases in abundance, and this earth would have been become uninhabitable. So it's God's power, God's scheme, which has brought about the appropriate physical properties for life to exist on this planet Earth. And if we don't live hard with this, we are ruining this earth, the atmosphere, all the elements, and each other too. Then God says in verse number 14, Aham Vaishvanaraha Bhutva Prani Nam Deham Ashrita Pran Apan Samayuktaha Pachami Annam Chaturvidham. Aham I Vaishvanar, that is the gastric fire. Another name for this is Jatragni. Bhutva, having become. Prani Nam, of living beings. Deham, the body. Ashrita, abiding. Pran apan. Samayuktaha, associating with pran and apan. Ingoing and outgoing. Pran and apan, those are the different names of the pran according to the functioning. Pachami, I digest. Annam, food. Chaturvidham, fourfold. I, having become the fire, the gastric fire, Vaishvanar, abide in this body of beings and associated with pran and apan, digest the fourfold food. So the same supreme consciousness expresses itself as the warmth of life in all living creatures. So over here, the eternal reality is indicated as the mighty life which is pulsating through the body and manifests itself as the digestive fire, Vaishvana. That's how the food gets assimilated. If the Jatragni is weak, we cannot digest the food. That's why the yogis, they came up with a lot of great techniques so that our Jatragni stays strong. Pranayam, so many cleansing, so many asanas. But then it's up to us to do it. I digest the fourfold food. So this digestive power in a healthy living organism assimilates all types of food. The entire variety of human diet is classified under 4 heads. In Sanskrit, it's called bhojya, food which is chewed with the teeth. Peya, food which is swallowed, like milk, juice. Food sucked, that's called kosha, like a sugar cane. In India, we used to suck. And the food which can be licked, like a honey, that is a leha. So behind all the gastric juices is God's energy that works to make the process of digestion possible. And these rishis, they divided that into 4. They say 4 kinds of food. But it's a God's energy which makes us digest. Whether we masticate the food or whether we just swallow it or suck it or lick it. So 4 types embrace all kinds of foods, whether they are vegetarian, non-vegetarian, prepared, unprepared, raw, ripe, vegan, whatever you want to call it. All things consumed by the mouth are digested, assimilated, and absorbed because of the digestive system. And the power in the digestive system is nothing but a manifestation of God, godly energy. This is what he's trying to tell us. Then he says associated with pran and apan also. It is the Lord that helps us to swallow the food. It's the same Lord who makes us breathe also. Pran. Through the pran, all our organs function. Whether it's a circulation is happening, or digestion is happening, or excretion is happening, prans are so important. So in this total process, the individual lives, the life of receiving pran and responding to them, also the apan, on the whole, the phenomenal powers, the material world outside, the matter vehicles, their functions, all manifestations at all the times are of the same eternal divinity. This is the message he's giving us. So when you're doing the pranayam, remember God. When you're eating food, remember God. When you're doing the Surya Namaskar also in your yoga practice, think about God. At night, if you're taking a walk and look at the moon outside, connect with God. You look at a beautiful flower outside, it's a manifestation of God. When we walk on the earth, remember God is there too. Be thankful for this beautiful earth given to us by God. So there are so many ways we can connect with God, thank God, all day long while doing our duties. Sarvasya cha aham hridi, samnivishtaha mata smriti jnanam apohanam cha, vedai cha sarve aham eva vedya, vedant krit vedvit eva cha aham. Beautiful verse. Sarvasya, of all. Cha means and. Aham, I. Hridi, in the heart. Samnavishtaha, seated. Mata, from me. Samriti, memory. Jnanam, knowledge. Apohanam, their absence. Cha means and. Second line, Vedai, by the Vedas. Cha means and, survey by all. Aham, I. Ev means even. Vedya, to be known. Vedant Krit, the author of the Vedanta. Ved, Vid, the knower of the Vedas. Ev means even, Cha means and, Aham, I. Lord Krishna says, and I am seated in the hearts of all. All. Remember that. From me are memory and knowledge, as well as their absence. I am verily that which has to be known in all the Vedas. I am indeed the author of the Vedanta and the knower of the Vedas. Am I? So first he says, I am seated in the hearts of all. In the heart of all living creatures. Here the heart does not mean the physiological heart, but it's a metaphysical heart. Remember that. The term heart in philosophy means mind which has been trained to entertain constantly the positive qualities of love, tolerance, mercy, charity, kindness, etc. That is the heart he's talking about. A peaceful, joyous mind, settled in tranquility, alert, vigilant to receive new messages. Messages of the higher inspiration is called the heart. So the infinite dwells in the heart means that he is present everywhere, Lord is self-evident in that kind of a heart. And we have all those qualities when we are meditating. So in the heart of the meditator, God resides there. From me are memory and knowledge as well as their absence. So it is the light of consciousness that illumines all our experiences in life. In the morning when we get up, we know what our name is, where we live. We need that memory. So from him alone, all memories, knowledge, as well as forgetfulness come to us. Certain things we need to forget also. Memory is constituted of our experiences of the past, stored away in our understanding, which guides our present and future activities. So memory is needed. All the education which we have right now, at this moment, are the memories from the past. So unless we are aware of the memories, they will not be available in our present life. So all of these processes are possible only in the light of life, and which is called God. God has created us or created within us an amazing mechanism, faculty of knowledge, memory. See, brain is the hardware, but the mind and the intellect are like a software. Okay? So just be thankful of God. Acquisition of new knowledge presupposes our capacity to give up our false notions. In the past, we didn't know it completely. It's good to forget, and how to get that? That's also God's plan. So imperfect knowledge gets weeded out when a person is cultivating new knowledge. So a capacity is a prerequisite in acquiring new knowledge. Remember that. So all these subjective activities, mental and intellectual, arise from a, or maintained also with the power of Lord. Be thankful. That's why we pray to God. Please heighten my intellect. Please make my mind calm. I that is to be known by all the Vedas. So that means the Vedas, Vedic mantra. So Lord Krishna says the infinite consciousness is one common factor that has been adored. If you remember all the Vedic mantras, they start with the God's name, Om. All those mantras. I am indeed the author of the Vedanta, as well as the knower of the Vedas. So a seeker who listens to the Vedas, reflects upon the wisdom, ultimately comes to experience the fulfillment of his life, is also at no stage anything other than the same consciousness, which is God. See, the Vedas, they contain innumerable material and so many spiritual instructions. But the object of all Vedic knowledge is to know Him. Him means God. That's what we learned in the Kathopanishad. Sarve Veda Yatupadam Amnanante. All the Vedas, mantras are actually pointing towards God, it says. Those are like arrows which are pointing towards Him. So these 4 verses, what he's saying is, The conscious is him. The warmth feel, it is the same consciousness which fertilizes the earth. And the same divine consciousness as the moonlight which supplies the food to the plant kingdom. It is the truth, gives the warmth to our body. Through that warmth, food gets assimilated. And all these different actions are happening in our body, or transactions are which are going to happen in our body through different parts of our body is again divine consciousness. So not only the outside world, but the inside world also. The same super light, super consciousness is making it possible. It's making us possible to gain experience also from the outside, store away the knowledge also, replace the ignorance with better knowledge also. So the eternal principle which expresses itself as essential power, with which all the activities are possible, it helps the higher life to grow and expand into wisdom also. It's the very theme which is indicated in the Vedas. So all these 4 verses which we studied today, they are enumerating the glories of God. If you want to memorize and sing, these are beautiful verses to remember God through what He has given us. Essence of all these scriptures is to engage your mind day and night in loving devotion to God. So that's why it's good to memorize these. We are trying to connect with God with the day-to-day activities. And in the following verses, Lord Krishna is pointing out the true nature of the infinite as the unconditioned, all-pervading, and eternal. Because the infinite reality transcends all intellectual concepts. Because intellectual concept says this is finite, this is infinite, this is perishable, this is imperishable. God is even beyond that. So considering the relative world of experiences, Lord Krishna says in verse number 16, Dvau imau purushoho loke kshara cha akshara eva cha kshara sarvani bhutani kutastha aksharaha uchyate. Dvau means 2. Imau, these. Purushau, Purushas, the beings. Loke, in the world. Kshar, the perishable. Cha means and, akshar, the imperishable. Ev means even, cha means and. Second line, again, kshar means perishable. Sarvani, all. Bhutani, beings. Kutastha, unchanging. Akshar, the imperishable. Uchyate is called. 2 Purushas are there in this world. The perishable and the imperishable. All beings are the perishable, and the Kutastha is called imperishable. So the realm of matter is indicated in this verse as the perishable. So with the reference to the field of matter, you remember these were the, this term we learned in the previous chapter also, chapter number 13. Okay. Kshetragya vibhagya, if you remember that. So with the reference to the field of matter, kshetram alone can be the knower of the field kshetra. That's what we learned. So with reference to the perishable Purusha, there is a spirit, the self, which is the imperishable Purusha. So that means in this body also, there is something which will perish, and then there's something which will not perish. So Kshar and Akshar. Because we know the body changes. Our own body, we have seen from childhood, youth to the little old age. Mind we see keeps on changing. The quality of our feelings and the emotions, they change. Our intellect also changes. We keep on adding new knowledge into our intellect. But all these changes, there is something in us which does not change. Only then we know that it's changing. If there was nothing in us which that also kept changing, then we will not know that what is changing. So only with the reference to and as a contact with the perishable, the kshar, it is called akshar. So that it's like in a relative world of experiences, Lord Krishna is pointing it out to us. So in the material realm, Maya is changing. Individual soul does not change. It includes all the beings from the tiniest insect to the highest celestial gods. Okay? For everything, everybody. So the immutable, imperishable principle of life is the self, which is called Akshar, which is common in all living creatures at all times. So that this self in the middle of the change remains changeless. So in other words, all changes can take place only in the contact with it are both indicated by the metaphor he used over here as kutta. Kuttast means that which remains like an anvil. Anvil is a blacksmith in the old times. When they put the iron piece and they wanted to bend it, they will just hammer it. The kuttast, the anvil will not break or bend, but the iron piece will. That is called kuttast. Okay, so that's why he's using this analogy over here. But distinct from these two, the perishable and the imperishable, untainted by the imperfections of these two relative conditions, is the highest spirit. He says, Uttamaha Purushatu Anya, Paramatma iti udahrita, Ya lokayam aveshe, bhivati avyaha ishvaraha. Uttamaha, the supreme. Purushaha, two means but, Anya means another. Paramatma, the highest self. See, there's a Atma, there's a Paramatma, highest self. Iti means thus, udahrita, called. Ya means who? Lokatrayam, the three worlds. Avishya, pervading. Vibhati, sustains. Avyaha, the indestructible. Ishvaraha, Lord. But distinct is the Supreme Purusha, called the highest self. So you remember earlier he said we are the Ansh of that Anshi. So now he's talking about that Anshi. The indestructible Lord, who pervading the three worlds. Three worlds means waking, dream, and deep sleep. Those are our worlds. Sustains them. So having spoken about the world and the souls, Lord Krishna speaks of God here in this verse. Again, take your mind towards that chapter 13. It was discussed that no other field exists in the field of knowing when the field of matter is removed from the knower of the field. What remains is only the knowing principle, which is called knowledge. The same way here, when the perishable is transcended, what remains is not imperishable, but that which played as the perishable Purush as well as the imperishable Purush. So in other words, even in this matter, call as a matter also that the power to fertilize, power to create, who is doing it? God. So the pure spirit, Purush, is spoken as the supreme self here, who pervades and sustains the three worlds. The world, the realm of experience. So three realms of experiences in which we eke out our life's returns are the states of waking, dream, and deep sleep. Okay, Jagrat, Swapna, and Sushupti. Those are the Sanskrit terms for those three worlds of ours. So the same self is the illuminator of all experiences in all the above three states of consciousness. So when we are sleeping also, or when we are in a deep sleep also, Sushupti, there is someone who is awake. Because these are not three different types of a Purusha. Remember that. According to the limitations and conditions around it, the spirit looks different in its manifestations. So this verse clearly disproves the claim of non-dualistic philosophers who state that the individual soul itself is the supreme soul. The individual soul, according to Lord Krishna, is a tiny and only pervades the body that it resides. God, the supreme Purush, has created the whole universe. The tiny part of it has created this individual world. Okay? Good or bad or ugly, whatever we do, we create that. So according to the limitations and conditions around it, the spirit looks different in its manifestations. It's almost like a space in the pot, then space, and then a space outside. Even though there's no difference in the space, space is the same. But sure, it's limited by those walls. That's where the limitations are. So the infinite consciousness itself is the perishable field in another form, and as the knower of the field, the same consciousness is the imperishable reality in the perishable conditioning. But when the conditionings are transcended, the same self is experienced as the supreme self, the Paramatma. We'll look at it next week. How this is really the supreme. So he's going to go a little bit deeper into this philosophy which we have been talking about over here. So, but we'll stop it here. So we'll start with verse number 18 and finish up this chapter next Sunday. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaye Purnameva Visheshyate. Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you very much for coming.